The House That Waited. Eleanor Hart had always loved old buildings. As a freelance photographer, she spent her nights in abandoned places, capturing the poetry of peeling paint and broken windows. When she heard rumors about Marrow House, a forgotten mansion hidden deep in the woods of northern Maine, she didn't hesitate. People said the house had been empty for over 40 years. People also said it didn't like being disturbed. Eleanor didn't believe in that sort of thing. 1. The road into the trees. The forest grew unnervingly dense as she followed the dirt road indicated on an old survey map. Her phone had lost signal miles earlier, and twilight had begun to gather between the branches. When the mansion finally came into view, it was almost swallowed by the trees. 3 stories of dark wood, gabled roofs, and windows like dead, staring eyes. Her breath caught. Not from fear, she told herself, just admiration. But Marrow House didn't look abandoned. Not exactly. Every window was intact, the porch steps were worn but solid, and the front door, though old, stood closed with an unsettling neatness. As Eleanor approached, the forest went silent. No insects, no birds. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. She raised her camera. The click of the shutter echoed too loudly. 2. The house opens. The door drifted open before she could touch it, just a few inches, as if the house exhaled and the hinges sighed. Eleanor froze, pulse pounding. "Old houses shift," she whispered, but the air was still. So still she could hear her own heartbeat. She stepped inside. The interior smelled like dust and long-lost time. Furniture remained exactly where it must have stood decades earlier. A piano with its lid closed, a set of teacups arranged neatly on a tray. Portraits of unknown people lining the walls, their painted eyes strangely bright in the dim light. Her camera flashed. For a moment, she thought she saw a figure standing at the end of the hall, tall, thin, leaning slightly forward. But when the flash faded, the hall was empty. She checked the picture. Nothing but shadows. 3. The whispering room. Upstairs, she chose the master bedroom for her night shots. The wallpaper had peeled into long strips that curled like old tongues. A large wardrobe stood in the corner, massive, carved with twisting patterns that looked like roots. As she set up her tripod, she heard it. A voice. A whisper. "Stay." She spun around. The room was empty, but the wardrobe's door, that had been closed, now stood ajar. Eleanor swallowed hard. Her breath misted in the air, even though the temperature hadn't been cold before. She approached the wardrobe, feeling foolish for being afraid. "Hello?" she said softly. As if in response, a second whisper came, closer, near her ear. "Welcome home." Eleanor stumbled back so fast, her tripod toppled. The wardrobe door creaked open wider. Inside, something moved. Something pale. Something shaped like a person, but wrong. Limbs too long, head tilted at an impossible angle, as though its neck had been broken decades ago. Eleanor bolted from the room. 4. Someone else in the hall. The hallway stretched unnaturally long as she ran. Her footsteps sounded doubled, as if someone ran behind her a split second later. She forced herself not to look. At the stairs, she chanced a glance over her shoulder. A man stood at the far end of the hall. Tall. Thin. Face blank and gray, as if made of wax. His limbs hung at strange angles, loosely jointed like a marionette waiting for a puppeteer. He didn't walk, he leaned forward, and the house seemed to lean with him. Eleanor fled down the stairs. 5. The house shifts. But when she reached the ground floor, the foyer was wrong. The front door no longer faced her. Instead, a hallway stretched where the exit should have been, lined with portraits she had not seen before. Each painting was of the same family: mother, father, 3 children. But with each portrait, their faces grew more blurred, more distorted, more hollow. She forced herself forward. Behind her, floorboards creaked, slow, deliberate, like something very old following her, weight for weight. In the next portrait, the tallest child's limbs were too long. In the next, his neck slanted sideways. In the next, his eyes were gone. Eleanor clapped a hand over her mouth to stifle a cry. The house wasn't abandoned. It was occupied, and it wanted her to see. 6. The truth in the basement. She found the door to the basement half open. Light flickered below, impossible since there was no power. Yet something drew her down the steps. The basement was filled with old suitcases. Dozens. All with initials. All dusty. She brushed one off. E.H. Her initials. Her skin prickled. She opened the suitcase. Inside were photographs. Hundreds. All of her. Taken from behind bushes, across streets, from shadows. Some taken inside her apartment. Her throat tightened. She staggered back. The whisper came again, this time behind her. "We've been waiting for you." She turned. The tall, broken man from the hall stood at the bottom of the stairs. But now she saw his face more clearly, his eyes sunken like empty wells, his mouth stretched into a grin that split too far across his cheeks. And he wasn't alone. The whole family stood behind him, distorted versions of the people in the portraits, all leaning, all broken, all smiling. 7. The house closes. Eleanor scrambled backward, but the suitcase room warped around her, closing like a throat swallowing. The tall man reached out his too long arm. Her camera flashed wildly as she pressed the shutter again and again, a blind panic. The last thing she saw was his hand opening, impossibly wide, like a shadow trying to swallow the light. The basement door slammed shut. The forest went silent again. 8. What the ranger found. 3 days later, a forest ranger came upon Marrow House while checking for storm damage. The front door was closed. The house was still and perfect as always. He found a camera in the upstairs hall. Its memory card held hundreds of photos. Most were black. Some showed warped faces, blurred figures, long limbs reaching. The very last image, though, was clear. Eleanor Hart standing in the basement, eyes blank, limbs hanging wrong, neck bent softly to the side, like she belonged there, like she had always belonged there. Behind her, the family smiled. Continuation, Marrow House, After the Vanishing. Chapter 1. The Last Photo. The ranger stared at the final picture on Eleanor Hart's camera, rubbing his thumb over the screen as if the image might change. Eleanor's face, what was left of it, had the smooth emptiness of wax. Her eyes looked painted on, lifeless. Her body sagged in a way no living person could manage without snapping bones. "That's impossible," he muttered. He had known Eleanor. Not well, but enough. She passed through the ranger station often when she photographed old buildings in the region. Always cheerful, always asking for trail maps. He pressed the shutter button to view the next image. There wasn't one. A cold draft slid across his neck. The house creaked above him. 3 long groans, like something stretching after a long sleep. He looked at the basement door. It was closed again. "Nope," he said under his breath. "Absolutely not." He pocketed the memory card, left the house, and didn't look back as he hurried through the woods. But the trees seemed closer, the path narrower, as if something behind him inhaled slowly, listening. Chapter 2: The Investigator. Detective Mara Ivers hated the woods. She hated the cold, the bugs, the smell of wet bark, all of it. But she hated missing persons cases even more, especially ones involving people she admired. Eleanor had been one of her favorite photojournalists, sharp, brave, always sending prints to the department as thank you gifts after interviews. And now she was gone. The ranger handed Mara the memory card. "I didn't touch anything else. Didn't open the basement again. Didn't want to." "You said she was in a picture?" Mara asked. He nodded slowly. "If it is her." Mara narrowed her eyes. "Explain." He shook his head. "Better if you see." Later, in her car, Mara loaded the images onto her laptop. The more she clicked, the colder she felt. Shadows, distorted figures, the apparent family that lived and died in Marrow House. And finally, Eleanor. Mara snapped the laptop shut so quickly the hinges clicked. She sat in silence, gripping the steering wheel. Something was wrong with that house. Deeply, deeply wrong. Chapter 3: Return to Marrow House. Mara approached Marrow House just before dusk. She carried 2 flashlights, extra batteries, a backup radio, and a gun she prayed she wouldn't need. The house stood exactly as the ranger described: 2 clean, 2 intact, 2 awake. The front door was closed. Mara pushed it open. The air inside was warm, too warm, as if the house had a heartbeat. She scanned the foyer. "Eleanor?" she called softly. A soft whisper answered. Not words, just a breath. A drawn-out exhale. Her flashlight flickered. Once, twice. Then every portrait on the walls seemed to shift slightly, as though their faces had been repainted while she blinked. Mara stepped forward, jaw tight. "This is just a building. Wood, nails, dust." But the floor beneath her feet pulsed gently, like a lung rising, like a heart beating. Chapter 4: Echoes in the Hall. A soft tap, tap, tap came from upstairs. Mara followed, one hand hovering near her holster. Each step creaked like a warning. She reached the master bedroom, the same one Eleanor had shot photos in. The wardrobe stood open. Empty. But the smell inside. Old wood, dust, and something else. Something sweet and rotten. She pulled Eleanor's printed photos from her coat pocket and compared the room to the images. Everything matched, except one thing. In Eleanor's photos, the wardrobe doors were closed. Behind Mara, the floor groaned. She turned sharply. Nothing. Her flashlight passed over the wall, over the portrait. Mara froze. The portrait of the father now had Eleanor's face painted onto the background behind him. Not her real face, her broken one. The one from the basement photo. Mara took a step back. The painted Eleanor slowly turned her head in the portrait until her eyes stared directly at Mara. Her mouth opened. A whisper escaped the canvas. "Help me." Chapter 5. The Whispering Basement. The basement door slammed open by itself. Mara spun toward it, pulse racing. A faint light glowed below. "Eleanor?" she whispered. Something moved downstairs. Something small. Something quick. She descended, gun drawn. The basement looked different now. Larger, deeper, filled with more suitcases than before. Some were new. One had a luggage tag with fresh ink. M-Ivers. Her blood ran cold. She knelt and opened it. Inside were photographs, but this time not of Eleanor. They were of Mara, walking to her car, entering the police station, sleeping in her apartment. Her breath hitched. "You've been watching me!" The whisper came from behind her, soft and pleading. "We all watch now." She turned. A small figure crouched in the corner of the basement. A child. Its limbs were folded like a broken marionette, head tilted, eyes hollow. It lifted one trembling arm and pointed at her. Behind it, the shadows shifted, broadened, stood up. The tall man leaned out of the dark, his head grazing the ceiling beams. His long fingers flexed slowly, as if waking from sleep. "You've come home," he crooned. Mara raised her gun. "Stay back!" The house's lights died all at once. The darkness swallowed her scream. Final chapter. When the house loosens its grip. Silence. Not the natural silence of an abandoned home, but a heavy, breathing quiet, alive, attentive, waiting. Mara lay on the cold basement floor, the darkness around her thick as oil. Her head throbbed. Her flashlight was shattered somewhere behind her, its glass glittering like broken ice. Something large shifted in the darkness. Slow steps. Two long limbs dragging lightly against the cement. The tall man was approaching. "Stay," he breathed, voice rattling like an old vent. Mara forced herself upright, her fingers scraping across dust and old stones until they hit something metal. A camera. Eleanor's camera. Its strap was torn, as if something had sliced through it. The tall man's silhouette emerged from the dark, bones bending softly, skin pulled too tight where it shouldn't be. He reached toward her. Mara lifted the camera and pressed the shutter. Flash. For a split second, the basement lit up and she saw everything clearly. The crooked family in a circle around her, the boy with his neck hanging like wet paper, the mother with her arms stretched too long. Eleanor, or what she had become, standing near the stairs, her head tilted like a doll's, her skin sagging like old wax. The family recoiled from the light. Mara pressed the shutter again. Flash. Their skin rippled. The tall man hissed, a sound like splitting wood. Again. Again. Lights detonated across the basement as she fired the shutter in frantic succession. Shadows peeled off the figures like burnt layers. The house itself seemed to groan, deep and furious, as if its walls hated the brightness. The basement floor trembled. A crack opened in the concrete, widening like a mouth. "Mara," Eleanor whispered behind her, voice fragile, pleading. "Don't go. We need you. New eyes, new breath, new pieces." Mara stumbled backwards, her heart clawing at her ribs. Eleanor reached out. A finger slipped off her hand and fell to the floor with a soft tap. "Please, stay!" Mara ran. The basement stairs seemed impossibly long, as though the house stretched them to keep her inside. But she dragged herself upward, one hand gripping the railing, the other clutching the camera like a weapon. Behind her, voices rose in a desperate, hungry chorus. "Don't go!" She reached the top, slammed the basement door shut, and shoved a small hall table against it. The wood buckled beneath her hands as the people pounded from below. Mara sprinted through the hall. Portraits on the walls twisted, mouths opening in silent screams, eyes following her. "You belong to us," the tall man roared from deep below. The front door was open. A breath of cold forest air hit her face. She ran. Leaves whipped her arms, branches clawed her jacket. The woods were darker than night should be, but behind her, the house watched. She could feel it. When she reached the edge of the trees, the great front door slammed shut by itself with a thunderous final boom. The windows darkened all at once, like hundreds of eyes closing in disappointment. Then everything went still. Truly still. The forest exhaled, like something ancient releasing its grip. Mara didn't stop running until she reached her car. Epilogue. 3 weeks later. Detective Mara Ivers sat alone in her office, lit only by a desk lamp. She had printed every photo recovered from Eleanor Hart's camera. All the supernatural shapes, all the twisted figures, all the distorted faces. Gone. Every picture was blurred by darkness or motion. Every shadow was just a shadow, except the last one. The final picture remained perfectly sharp. An empty basement, cold floor, bare walls. Nothing strange at all. If someone else looked at it, they'd think Eleanor simply disappeared. Another missing person case. Another tragedy. But Mara knew better, because something in that picture had changed. Before printing it, she had looked at it dozens of times. There had been nothing in the corner. Now, there was a shape. Tall. Thin. Its head turned ever so slightly toward her. Her lamp flickered. The office window rattled, though the night outside was windless. Then, from her laptop speakers, which were not only muted, but fully powered off, a whisper seeped out, stretching into the room like a cold, gentle hand. "Come. Home." Mara froze. The lights died. And somewhere far away, in a house that waited patiently in the woods, a door creaked open.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. We'll see you in the next video.